Hello and welcome to this Market Entry webinar, a series arranged by Design Singapore Council. And this one is about Europe, the European design market now, post-pandemic. So welcome and good afternoon to our friends in Singapore. Good morning to our friends in Europe. Good evening, anybody joining from a bit further east of Singapore, Australia or New Zealand. And if you're joining us from New York or LA in the Americas, you probably should be in bed, but thank you very much for burning the midnight oil. So we're very excited to be here to discuss this very urgent topic of the European design market and where it is now. And we are asking that question. And I am delighted to be joined by a stellar panel. I have with me the design journalist, Rosa Bertoli, who is the design editor of Wallpaper magazine. And she really does have her finger on the pulse across all areas of design and lifestyle globally. Also delighted to be joined by Gabriel Tan of Gabriel Tan Studio. I'm sure most people are familiar with Gabriel, Singaporean designer who is recently moved and living and working in Europe, in Porto, Portugal, to be precise. Oh, and me, I'm delighted to be joined by me. I'm Tony Chambers. I'm a creative director, an editor and design consultant, a graphic designer and typographer by training, but worked for most of my career in magazines and publishing as a junior designer and then art editor for the Sunday Times magazine, art director of GQ magazine, Condé Nast, and then Wallpaper magazine for 15 years, first as creative director and then as editor-in-chief. And a couple of years ago, I made the brave decision to leap from the comfort zone of publishing and magazines, and it is a very comfortable zone, to set up my own business, TC and Friends, which is a design consultancy and creative agency. And last but by no means least, very happy to be joined by Mabel Liu from the Design Singapore Council. And Mabel, a little later on, will be telling us more about the very brilliant Business of Design program. And very importantly, we want to hear from you. So we have a Q&A session, about 15 minutes before the end. So 15 minutes of questions where you tell us what you want to know. You can ask the panel generally, you can ask individuals, you can ask anything you want about this very interesting subject, this very urgent subject of the European design market and how you as a designer can break into that market, what to do, what not to do. All questions are there to be answered by our panel. Now, I am going to now hand over, stop sharing my screen, so you see the lovely faces more clearly of Rosa and Gabriel. And I'm going to ask Rosa first and then Gabriel to give a brief biography and introduction to them. I'm sure most of you are familiar with their work, but I think it would be nice to hear from them, their background, their journey in design. So first, over to you, Rosa. Tell us about Rosa Bertoli.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. As always, it's a bit strange to talk to a screen, but I know you're all there, so welcome. My name is Rosa Bertoli, and I've, as Tony said, I've been the design editor of Wallpaper magazine since 2014. I have lived in London for 15 years now, but I am originally from Italy. My hometown is near Udine in the heart of the furniture district in the northeast, and companies like Moroso, La Cividina, Mattiazzi and Potocco, just to name a few, which I'm sure you all know, they've been literally at my doorstep growing up. So living there has always made it obvious to me how important design and furniture are as industries and in society. At Wallpaper, I oversee both digital and print content, as well as some special design-led initiatives. Some of which actually led me to work with several designers from Singapore in the past few years. For my work, I regularly speak with designers, companies from all over the world, and it's been particularly interesting in the past year to stay in touch, because everyone really wanted to stay in touch and talk about what was going on. So despite having missed the global design calendar, as I'm sure everyone has felt, I feel like I've been speaking to brands and creatives more and more. People wanted to talk about product and design, but also how their companies were doing. And I'm in the fortunate position to be able to have these conversations regularly, but even more so this year. So I hope to bring in some of that insight into that session today. I've also co-authored a book about London architecture with design journalist Sujata Berman, which came out a couple of years ago. If you're ever in town when travel is allowed again, I recommend it actually as quite a fun guide to explore the city by foot. I also work as a consultant, writer, and on different communication strategies with different brands. Many of them are Italian. And it's a pleasure to be here with Tony, Gabriel, and Mabel today. I hope you enjoy the webinar, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Rosa. Can I just ask one question there, which is a question, Rosa and I worked together for many years. And actually it isn't a question I ever asked you, and it just occurred to me. Your birthplace, so growing up in this area that anybody who knows the Italian design and furniture business know that this is the heart and the center of the manufacturing. When you were young, were you aware of that? Was design, furniture, and that area, was it something you were conscious of? Obviously you are now, but was it something as growing up you knew this is an important zone for design and furniture?
I think you were aware of it in the sense that, say, you'd be driving around with your parents and you'd see a big factory or, you know, a big HQ with the word Moroso, and it always looked really striking. And so you knew that these entities existed, and you heard about them maybe more that if you had grown up probably in an area where there weren't these big furniture factories, and you know, you knew of friends whose parents worked there. So it was a natural part of society. So not furniture or design as a thing, but as just a part of everyday life. And I think, you know, after a while, you notice the ads in the papers from all these companies, and you start to figure out that this is all a system. And then obviously, when I arrived at Wallpaper, I did it without the expectation of becoming a design journalist at the beginning. But then all these names kept popping up, and I thought, oh, I know these people, I know these companies. You know, I grew up with these names, and you start putting all the pieces together and realize what the design world really is, and then you go on, and you realize how big it is and how much it stretches out. And I think when you see these names, you don't realize that people know them all over the world. You know, I come from a very small town, and not many people know about it, but in the design world, they instantly know where Udine is because of all these companies. So I guess I have put the pieces together growing up and then arriving at Wallpaper, but I've realized I had this understanding of furniture design as a business system as well.
So it was destiny in a sense. You ended up in the career you did. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Rosa. Now I'd like to ask Gabriel your background, your biography. We'll be talking in more detail later about your work, but how did Gabriel Tan start his career from an early age, and how did he end up where he is now?
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, hi, everyone. I'm Gabriel Tan. I have my own studio called Gabriel Tan Studio since 2016. My career started in 2005 when I was in the third year of university. I participated in a few design competitions and was lucky to be able to travel to Tokyo Design Week, Stockholm Future Design Days, Milan Design Week, before I graduated because of these competitions. And that really opened my world to opened my eye to the world of design. Eventually, after I graduated, I set up a studio with 3 other designers. One was my classmate, Wendy, and 2 other designers from Argentina that were based in Barcelona at the time. So, and we called our company Out of Stock Design because the 4 of us met in Stockholm. So it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek wordplay.
What was it called? Out of
Stock Design.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and we exhibited yeah, for like 4 years consecutively at the Milan Design Week, 3 years at Satellite, and 1 year in Tortona. And before we actually, only in our last year, I think, in our 4th year, that we met some companies like Lene Jose, Blast Station, and finally got some traction to start our business. So it wasn't a straightforward journey, because it took a few years before our work got into production, and then eventually we started designing for more companies both in Singapore and in Europe. And in 2016, I made the decision to start my own studio, working primarily with manufacturers in Japan, Europe, and the US, and also doing some interior design through another company called Studio Antimatter, that I started as well. And in 2019, I decided to create my own accessories brand called Origin, based in Portugal. And after that was when I eventually made a decision to move to Porto, which happened last year.
And was the move to Portugal, the inspiration was literally because you started this other project, or was it a love of the place? Was it a personal or a professional decision, or a conflation of the two?
Yeah, I was, since the beginning of my career, I wanted to have some experience living and working in Europe, because I was mainly, or I saw myself working more with European brands, and I felt that the handicap that I had was often, yeah, the face-to-face element, where I could only travel to Europe maximum 4 times a year, and also there were times when I came to Europe for meetings, and meetings were cancelled at the last moment, and then you kind of feel a little bit silly at the airport when somebody tells you that, oh, so and so can't make it tomorrow, and then you're like, okay, but I flew like 16 hours. So I felt that it was a necessary step right from since years ago, but I think that big push was, yeah, when I wanted to start my own brand, and after I started it in Portugal, I realized that it was not really possible to manage a company from Singapore, not for the long term at least. Yeah.
Not when you had the ambitions that you clearly have, and I think that's something that's so significant about you, Gabriel. And we'll elaborate on this later, in terms of you are clearly a very talented designer from a creative perspective, but I think you have a real entrepreneurial spirit, and you're adventurous and brave. And I think that's something we'll keep in mind when we talk later about your specific work, and the fact that you are now a Singaporean designer, working in Europe, working from Europe. But thank you for that background, Gabriel. All good stuff that we will touch on a bit later. I'm going to share screen again now, as we go into the next section of our webinar. And this is really the crux of what we've done in the last month or so. Primarily Rosa and myself, and Gabriel's helped a little bit too. Just a reminder here again, the questions, do get your questions into the Q&A box. We really want to hear what you want to know. But for the last few weeks, month, we have been reaching out to the leading design brands from Italy, France, Germany, Switzerland, the UK, and Denmark, to get their views on how things have been and how they feel they will be, very importantly, after this really rather traumatic and extraordinary year we've had. And the good news is that the news is positive. The feedback we've had has been really very positive for the design industry generally. I think the bottom line is the world has never needed design and good design more than it does now, and never needed good designers more than ever, because designers, as we know, solve problems, and we have a lot of problems. So yeah, we as an industry, we are needed more than ever. So thank you to all these great brands that we reached out to across these countries. So in Denmark, France, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, and the UK, we got great feedback from the top people, these top brands, from CEOs, chief marketing officers, design and research people. And a quick take away, quick sort of headline, some headline figures before I ask Rosa to elaborate more on some more of the details and a more informal take on those conversations. But 90% of the brands that we spoke to and the people that we spoke to said that despite this initial dip, obviously at the beginning of the pandemic, the sales figures were actually stable or up at the beginning of 2021, which is extraordinary. Very important one, this 85% said that the digital tools initiatives that they had implemented this past year will definitely be a key part of their strategy moving forward. Not unsurprisingly, 90%, possibly more, said that sustainability is key, a key aspect of the future of design and furniture manufacturing. As I say, that is more evident now than ever. And 25% mentioned from their own volition, this wasn't a question we asked them directly, but said that there'll probably be more local showrooms globally. So interactions and showrooms across the globe. This is an important asset for their company to face this post-pandemic era. So that's good news as well for designers in Singapore, that you might be seeing more activation happening from these brands. A few more key headline statements, which I'll whiz through here. We don't have time to dwell on them, but you will be able to access a recording of this so you can dwell on these facts and figures and quotes more. But they're 14% up, growth in Asia Pacific. And actually they'll be launching more collections throughout the year rather than focusing on one or two. So it's big, great information here from the brand director of Moroso, that collaboration between brands and companies could be far more important now, and it's a turning point. Minotti and quite a number of the other big Italian brands analyze how important now the home is, and that is actually, it's the center of our lives. And that has been a great asset and an improvement in their business. More people focus on the home. Similarly from Cassina, CEO Luca Fuso, home is so important. And definitely they're introducing new designers in 2021 and going forward. So positive words there. Similarly from Persona Frau, the importance and the role of the home. This has been an asset, and design, furniture design, lifestyle, this is something that, far from being damaged by this pandemic, this is one of the silver linings in the sense we are more focused on the home. Positive for Cartel, one of the brands that really did highlight sustainability as being one of the most important things. Flexform, again, positive. They launched all the products and collections they had planned. And importantly, that video and digital solutions really aided them. It's a positive in terms of the things they fast-tracked, and it was this digital communication, which Rosa will verify when she talks in a moment, that Italy was possibly quite a bit behind in digital technology and communication, but they've really fast-tracked the development there. Lovely quote here from Carola Bastetti, from the CEO of Living Divani, again emphasizing that it's such an integral part of our life, furniture and interiors. But she has advice to emerging designers: you must learn from rejection. Rejection is not necessarily negative. Don't give up. Rejection is a starting point to reflect and improve. Be humble and curious. Buon lavoro e buona fortuna. Rosa will translate. In Scandinavia, in Denmark, great brand Gooby and their CEO Klaus, wonderful guy. He gives a great tip here for emerging designers that strong concepts are so important, and not just in prototype. You have to really analyze that this will be a product that will work and be appropriate for that brand and work as a whole collection. It needs to demonstrate design, ingenuity and craftsmanship and the context of the piece. Once all these things are in place, the other important thing is that they need to feel that a relationship with that designer is possible, a long-term relationship, and that there is mutual respect. And Gabriel's going to go into more detail in that later. USM, the great Swiss company, their prediction, his prediction, the CEO for 2021, is that sustainable design is not sufficient. That's a given. Circularity, the circular economy, circularity is a must. And good is simply not good enough. I think that's a fantastic quote and a fantastic mantra. We really now have to raise the bar. And I think all these great companies and great designers who we are talking to today, you've got to be the best you can possibly be. The German company Schronbuck, again, great advice to designers hoping to break into this European market and work with these companies. You know, they receive hundreds of proposals. They always look at them, but please, please, please really target your proposal and your work and what you want to do to that company. Understand that company. Do your research. Do your background. Nothing worse than just sending your entire portfolio with a standard email, dear sir or madam. Of course, you would never do that, but I think it's wise advice, and he's saying that they really understand the brand. Nice comment from the CEO of Classicon, a German company that, you know, and there she's wishing and hoping for face-to-face again. They've all said that the digital encounters and Zoom has been a great assistance, but there's nothing like the real thing. They really want to meet people, and that's how great things happen. Into the UK, wonderful brand Benchmark and Sean Sutcliffe, the co-founder, a focus on health and well-being, and good product, good materials are healthy and make one feel better. Good design is good for your well-being. And a good tip for designers and emerging designers particularly, understand how things are made. And he gives a good anecdote. When Thomas Heatherwick, great architect and designer Heatherwick, was young, he spent time at their workshops and really learned how materials work and how you put things together. And just to close, at home here in London, Ben Evans, who is the director and co-founder of the London Design Festival. So a very positive message here is that London is really reconnecting now. And they actually had the London Design Biennial at Somerset House in June. So just around the corner, and they're confident that is going to happen both physically and virtually, but very, very confident, absolutely by the autumn, September, the London Design Festival will be all singing and dancing. And of course, we are in a fortunate position. The vaccine rollout has been extraordinary in the UK, but I think hopefully this is September, this late summer in September we're going to be back. So Rosa, thank you again. Rosa did most of the legwork on this with myself and got this connection, but I'm just going to stop sharing now and get Rosa to just elaborate a bit more on some of these facts and figures, but from a personal perspective, again, you having your finger on the pulse, coming from that design area, it means so much to you from a personal level, but also a professional level. Gives a few more headline quotes, and again, this very positive vibe we're getting from these great brands.
Yeah, so I think you know, this is a great time to be a designer. And if you look back historically, any time of crisis has been followed by a time of reconstruction, and the pandemic has definitely highlighted design flaws in the way both of our society and everyday lives are designed. And these need to be addressed sooner rather than later. So we need good creative thinkers for all that. And as Tony mentioned, as all the people we spoke to mentioned, design is very much in demand. And having spent so much time at home has made us reconsider furniture, but also objects and habits. So things that are maybe less tangible, but have design at their heart. And this plays a huge role in this context. And for a while, I thought maybe it was a cliche to think that, you know, a series of lockdowns would result in stronger demand for domestic design. But as you saw from a previous slide, 90% of the companies we spoke to said that they saw a growth or a stable financial situation after quite a short period of negative results. So it is definitely not a cliche, it's true, and the numbers prove that. So whether this initial enthusiasm for the home will last, it matters less, I think. What is important is that the current generation realizes that there are things about the domestic environment we didn't think about before. And again, this is all about design. And we need new systems, objects that can perform different functions, and ways to live the home that are different from before. So anything that is, you know, multifunctional, built to last, will definitely be more successful. We also need to have designs that can anticipate our needs, help us face times of crisis. And actually, a personal example, every year, Wallpaper gathers a jury to vote on what are our best designs of the year. And what won this year from the domestic design and life enhancer categories were a collection of antibacterial tiles by Italian company Marazzi, and a hand washing station made in Nigeria by Nifemi Marcus Bello, a local designer. And these are products that are very specific to this specific historical moment, but they should always be part of our lives. We should always be thinking like this. So I think we need to put some of these systems into place. And from the 20 conversations that we've had with Tony and with different companies from all over Europe, these are the important things that we found came out of these conversations. And this can be translated into practical advice for anyone wanting to get into the European design market at this time. So as I mentioned before, most companies mentioned a design that is flexible, multifunctional, able to adapt to contemporary lifestyles, and the companies that already had this kind of design into place could see their products go much further. Quality of design and manufacturing, so a very thoughtful, considerate design pays off. And again, companies that, actually all the companies we spoke to had absolutely fantastic quality, and they all saw that go very far. As we said before, the pandemic has accelerated the technological and digital renaissance, also in brands that were always based on a more traditional communication model. So the ability to communicate effectively, use digital tools, implement digital strategies, and operate in a both real life, but also virtual and digital world is increasingly important. So any designer wanting to get into design market need to have this absolutely spot on and be able to implement this communication. And as we said, sustainability is not enough. We need to think about the next step for that. So anyone who wants to design today needs to be very well versed in sustainability, materials, innovation. And then another thing which we thought was very interesting was the brands that said that they already had a system in place in a specific territory were able to operate in that territory where elsewhere, for example, things were locked down. So having a good sales network, showroom, partnership with local stores. And I think for a designer already in that territory, they can be an asset to a brand to help them work there better. And maybe Gabriel could tell us a bit about this later.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point, Rosa. Sorry to interrupt, because it's something that Gabriel touches on in a moment. But thank you so much. That's brilliant insight. And again, all the great feedback we've had from these brands and the top people of these brands, the CEOs, chief designers and marketing executives. We can make that available to everybody, a more thorough piece of information on that. But I'm going to share screen again, because we're now going to join Gabriel and his presentation. Gabriel, are you with us?
Yes.
There.
Thanks, Tony.
Pleasure. So this is the view from Gabriel Tam, who gave us an introduction, his biography before, but we have a wonderful presentation here from Gabriel, which is going to talk us through, which talks about the business culture, primarily at the beginning, his journey, some of his work. We have a selection of his work, which I think is just wonderful pieces of design, and great to see a contemporary designer from Singapore so successfully operating globally, and also some tips and advice and something I'll have to. So Gabriel, here you are working in your studio in Singapore, and I think the picture on the right is in Japan, I believe, one of your brands. But talk us through this and what your sense of you as a designer, contemporary designer operating now, what the business culture is and how one does break into the European market.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I wanted to share some thoughts regarding my experience working with different companies, especially in Europe. That I think the focus is really about building long-term relationships and not so much about the individual design, because I think when companies are trying to decide which designers to work with, it's not so much about whether that design you present on the table is great or not, but it's whether they see if they can collaborate with someone over a longer period of time. Especially now with the pandemic, I think more companies are wanting to kind of clean up their collections, or trying to clean up their way of working, or collaboration, such that to work with a trusted pool of a smaller group of people, but to go deeper in their relationships with them. So it's definitely not as easy as what I thought it was when I first started. When you're presenting prototypes at the fair, and you're thinking that, okay, like, I have, if I created a good ideas, people would want to produce them, or to collaborate with me. But then you realize that you have to show your products for a period of time and meet someone every year, over 3 to 5 years, before people gain any form of respect or trust in you as a designer.
Do you think trust is
so
such an important
it's
thing?
more about
Sorry to interrupt, Gabriel.
trust that you will stay in the business, because many designers, they show their prototypes, or they exhibit, but then they do not have the stamina to last more than a couple of years, and in the end they may switch industries, or they get a corporate design job somewhere designing electronics, for example. So I think to be a furniture designer requires that persistence, and like what Carola of Living Divani said, you need to be able to take rejection on the chin, and to continue pushing on. I remember last year at IMM Cologne, when I flew 16 hours for 2 meetings, I had my bag stolen at the first meeting, right under the table when I was presenting my work. And at the second meeting, the person that I was supposed to meet basically could not meet me, because he had a last minute appointment. So, at that point I felt like, sometimes you do question yourself, why do you fly 16 hours for 2 meetings, just to lose your passport and money, and then miss the second meeting due to circumstances that you can't control.
Things can only get better.
Exactly.
I think that's really, persistence rather than short-term interest is important. Let's look at some of your beautiful work, which has come out of this philosophy of this tenacity, this natural tenacity you have, combined with creative flair. So tell us about this.
I mean, the stove chair was actually one of the first designs that got into production after I started my own studio. And it was with a brand, Blast Station, which I knew from my days with out of stock design. So Blast Station is an interesting company from Sweden, and I think we first met in 2009. And with out of stock, it took us like 5 years to really build a friendship with them, to finally get a piece in production with them that they liked. So in 2014, I think we launched a lounge chair for them. And after I started my studio in 2016, I presented this idea to the owner of Blast Station, Johan, and he liked it, and he decided to put it into production. But it was a relationship that started, for more than 7 years already. So we already had a friendship, a previous collaboration. And the idea of this chair was to have a chair that was very small. Like, I was thinking, what could possibly be the smallest chair imaginable that would still be comfortable, and one that was small enough and light enough to be hung on the wall, like how the Shakers used to do in the past.
Beautiful. And these gorgeous vases?
Yeah, the air vases are for Menu, which was a brand that I always wanted to collaborate with since many years, and I actually had dialogue with them many times, but nothing really happened for a couple of years. And eventually they sent me a brief for designing a sculptural glass vase that they wanted so it was more in response to a specific brief, and they liked it, but it was also a result of a dialogue over at least 3 years. And the idea is to have an ethereal quality to glass vase. Of course, glass is a material that is quite new to me as a designer working in Singapore, because we do not have glass blowing industries. But having visited glass factories in Germany and in Portugal, I had to learn to understand the material before being able to design anything that was to be feasibly produced here.
It's great. And these beautiful Amarim cork panels.
Yeah, this was originally, so I met Amorim, one of the largest cork producers in the world, during a vacation to Portugal in I think it was 2014, where one of my clients actually recommended I visited them because I was asking about the cork industries in Portugal. So I visited some fascinating production facilities. And I kept in touch with my contact at Amorim. And when I was working on the interior project in Singapore, dual residence show flat, I asked them if they could do some bespoke panel that I designed. So I designed these panels. The quantity was pretty small, but they agreed to do it in the view of possibly commercializing these designs in the near future. And eventually, a brand called Abstracta from Sweden, which I was in touch with through another designer, saw these panels and liked the concept of using cork as an acoustic panel, and they asked if I could design another shape. They didn't really like the previous shape, but they liked the idea of using cork as an acoustic panel, because they were mainly using kind of felt, PET felt as their main panel materials. And then I connected the two companies so that they could collaborate, because most of the cork production globally is in Portugal anyway. So I arranged for a factory visit for the CEO of Abstracta, and we visited the factories together, and then we eventually developed this design between Amorim, myself, and Abstracta. Yeah.
Wonderful. So very rich and a deep relationship you've built there with the brand. That's been very fruitful, which is lovely to see. Conran shop, again, close to our...
And the Conran shop was actually introduced to me by one of my production partners in Singapore, Malaysia, and they were also one of my first clients after I started my studio in 2016, and we have designed many products for them, and it was a very good collaboration because I have a really good relationship with them, and I could show them designs anytime, even just over text message. We have a mutual trust because we have done many products together, yeah, this is a collection of case goods that, if I'm not wrong, this is doing very well at the Conran shop right now, and also a stool and bench collection that was one of my early designs back in 2016 that they also put into production. So this is an example of having a client that you can that you feel close to, that you're not afraid to share even sketch ideas, that you know that they will always be receptive to new ideas, and there is a mutual trust between us. And that is what I hope to build with each and every one of my clients, to work with not to work with like a huge amount of companies, but to have deeper relationships with a few.
Sure. Now tell us about Origin. This is the origin of your move to Portugal, I suppose, as well as it being a brand that you've started and developed, but with a great story behind it.
Yeah, Origin is a result of different observations over the years. I mean, I've observed that many brands are producing products in one country and branding it with the culture of another, and I felt, I mean, I kind of have mixed feelings about that as a designer, because I'm also partly contributing to that. I design for brands, and we understand that, yeah, I mean, in the end, design is a business, and it's not possible to if you are a brand from Denmark or Germany, for example, it's not often possible to produce everything there due to the high production cost. So it's obvious that you need to look for, if you want to sell your products at an affordable price to consumers, you need to produce in regions where they are more industrialized production or handcrafts for a more affordable price. So I discovered that Portugal was a place where many brands were actually producing in Europe. And then I saw that there wasn't actually brands in Portugal, or not so many brands in Portugal, that were really promoting their locally made products, or the Portuguese designers, which I found as well were very talented. So I started first by collaborating myself with one of the craftsmen to do these vases in Barro Preto, which I discovered was a tradition that was vanishing in Portugal. It's a kind of black terracotta clay that is fired under the ground in a pit where you bury the pieces with soil, and because the soil kind of takes away, by burying them, it takes away all the oxygen, and that's why the pieces turn black. Creates like a natural high pressure cooker by having the soil burying all these pieces, and then you basically fire them with firewood by digging a kind of a drain or a gully to feed the firewood into this underground pit. It's a super labor intensive process. That's why not many people want to do it. And it was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And then I brought in other designers to collaborate with them, both Portuguese as well as international. There was one year where I organized a kind of workshop after the Milan Fair, where I asked people who were interested and designers I liked to fly into Porto, and I rented a house for them to stay in. And then we went in like 4 different cars in a large entourage to visit all these craftsmen, 16 designers. And then those who eventually had ideas, we developed products together, like these bowls by Canadian designer Zoe, where she designed these bowls made of 3 different types of Portuguese marble that are glued together, and then after that machined. And yeah, I mean, for me, Origin is about building a community between the Portuguese craftsmen and the international design community. And it's not so much about myself. I only designed one product range for my own brand, and the rest were collaborating with both Portuguese and international designers, and discovering
the reception being, sorry to interrupt, Gabriel, reception from the Portuguese craftspeople, I presume it's been a positive thing. They're being employed, maybe getting their skills tested by different contemporary designers. I presume it's a reciprocal beneficial.
Yes, I mean, I had this conversation with Joao, who made my chart vases recently, when I was there to document his firing of the ceramics with Ines, our film and videographer. And he spoke in Portuguese to me. Ines translated, and basically he was saying that he's super happy to have his pieces, being sold in the US through Design Within Reach, or to being sold at different countries around the world. They're being sold in Tokyo, in Oslo, in Stockholm. And he said that he, as a craftsman, he said he would never be able to reach an international audience without this collaboration. And he's also happy that I gave him credit, that he's not an invisible craftsman just making my things.
Yes.
And yeah, and he expressed how happy he was about this collaboration. And he said that there were people in his town of Barcelos that even came up to him and asked, are you the guy who does work for Origin? Even very local encounters. And he said that it seems that people are noticing your brand, and he said he's happy for that. Yeah.
You've turned him into a design superstar.
Not really, yeah.
I found it very interesting that you mentioned the name of all the craftsmen who made the pieces. I don't see that very often, and I think it just brings a much deeper dimension to the collection, like a true collaboration with the artisans. So I think that's
definitely very positive. Credit where it's due, which often doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. I find that
Gabriel,
designers
just
are
on
often
these
given too
closing
much credit.
thoughts, because you've put together some nice thoughts here about, from your perspective. Of course, this is an individual's perspective, but a very good perspective from the great work you've done and the ambition and a very proactive way of operating as a designer and entrepreneur. But talk us just through these briefly before we move on, because I think there's some great things there about the long-term personal business developments. You've said that trust, investment, you say, is so necessary, and perseverance.
Yeah, I think that in order to make it, or just to make a living out of this as a furniture designer, is a lot about a long-term investment in your own personal growth, in my own personal growth, at least for what I, and also looking at it as a long-term project rather than something that yields immediate results. And because you are making trips to visit people without any promise of immediate projects, and you know that maybe it's not something that you put X amount of dollars in and you will get X amount of dollars out. It involves a lot of different things, also a bit of fortune, a bit of luck, a bit of personal chemistry with people that you meet, whether there is chemistry or not. And also you need perseverance, but also you need to be calm, because things don't progress the same speed as they do in Singapore or Asia. And you need to work at the pace of the brands or of the people you want to work with. And that I realized after starting Origin as well. I have designers chasing me, constantly asking, when is the, how is it going with the designs that they sent to me that I liked, and how are prototypes going. But sometimes, if when you're managing a brand, you have to deal with so many things, as well as a pandemic that is slowing production down, and it's not possible to develop as new products as fast as we want to. So it's a balance between calm and perseverance, I think, and also giving a chance to younger companies. I know.
Yeah, I like this.
Some designers may not want to work with brands that are unknown yet.
Yes, that's a really good point.
Sorry?
I think that's a great point to close on. But look for the next generation of brand, build a relationship, because as you say, it's all about trust. It's about understanding a brand, and the longer you work with them, the more that trust will develop. And stay calm and carry on, as we say. But thank you, Gabriel. That's absolutely wonderful insight from a designer and an entrepreneur. I'm now going to hand over to Mabel Liu from Design Singapore Council, and she's going to share some key information on the very brilliant Business of Design program. And also she'll introduce our Q&A session. We've got some great questions in. Send any more. Don't be shy. Get them in there. We want to hear from you. But I will hand over now to Mabel. Here she is.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Tony and Rosa and Gabriel for your generous insights and your sharing just now. So as Tony has mentioned, I'd like to take this chance to share more about the Business of Design program. And for those of you who have joined us for the earlier webinars, please bear with me for the next few minutes while I share a bit about the program. So the Business of Design program aims to grow the export value of Singapore designs through building mindshare in both business to business and business to consumer markets around the world. This 2-year-long program will address targeted aspects of developing the capabilities of participating design firms. This includes mentorship, access to networks, and brand storytelling to increase their competitiveness and demand on the global stage. The second round of the BOD program aims to generate new business opportunities for up to 8 established Singapore design studios and brands who have the potential to internationalize in markets such as Europe and Asia, including Japan and Southeast Asia. To grow businesses and propel them globally, the program encompasses 3 key phases. For the first phase, DSG will appoint a panel of in-market consultants like Tony to guide design studios and brands in their pitch to secure overseas business opportunities. The consultants will also connect them to relevant business circles while providing mentorship for follow-through. These business circles or leads include property owners and specifiers for those who are seeking commercial contract projects, brands and manufacturers for those who are seeking consultancy projects, and global or regional retailers and distributors for those who are seeking buyers. These consultants will be selected based on their networks and influence and are expected to have convertible business leads in their markets. The second phase of the program comprises participants potentially being provided funding to engage a brand strategy agency. This will help to enforce quality perception in their brand and facilitate stronger recall. DSG will also organize a series of media training sessions for participating design firms, and the support for the second phase will be provided on a co-funding basis. Lastly, the program will culminate in a themed collective showcase at an established international showcase platform in 2022. Working with in-market consultants, this approach will raise the international standing of Singapore design and interest buyers from target markets in Asia and Europe. And to support interested design firms that are keen to internationalize in understanding the commitment required in entering new markets, DSG has co-organized this series of market entry webinars, including today's session, in addition to the BOD program. So these webinars are also part of an ongoing effort to provide resources that support the Singapore design community. So the open call for BOD participants is currently open and it will close on 22nd April. So I'll just quickly run through the eligibility and selection criteria for the program. So in terms of the eligibility criteria, the applicant must be a Singapore registered design firm from any of the following fields: furniture and lifestyle product design studios, multidisciplinary design studios that cover furniture and lifestyle product design as a part of their offering, design-driven and or for lifestyle product brands that work with Singapore designers to launch product lines. The lead applicant must also be a Singapore citizen or a permanent resident. So in terms of the selection criteria, the BOD program prioritizes established design studios and brands which fulfill the following criteria: having a compelling and differentiated brand philosophy and aspiring towards good design, which impacts positively on the environment, culture, society, or the economy; having strong business fundamentals and being able to readily scale up to meet international demand. So to do so, the participant must, for example, operate with a sound business model and have sufficient resources or be prepared to scale to meet through a network of production partners. Lastly, having a good understanding of the commitment required in entering a new market. So we really strongly encourage interested applicants to attend the market entry webinars that they're keen to expand into. So I hope this sharing provides an idea of what the Business of Design program is about. So if you'd like to find out more information about the program, please scan the QR code that's currently on the screen. Before we, before we start the Q&A session, please scan the QR code. Yeah, and I think we can start the Q&A session now. Maybe to kick things off, Gabriel, would you like to share a little bit about your experience in being part of the BOD program, in the first edition?
Yeah, sure. I think the BOD program helped me to grow a lot personally, as well as talking about the amount of meetings I had in the past year or 18 months, which with companies that I was not able to reach before, and there was obviously a certain sense of nervousness when you walk into some of these heritage brands, companies, and visiting their factories. But after doing it a few times, you realize that, yeah, it's not such a big of a deal as much as you make it out to be in your mind. Because, yeah, I think it's all about getting used to it and presenting your work. And after a while, you don't feel like a fish out of water anymore. And I mean, I think the tangible results would only come in a couple of years, is if there will be some collaborations happening. I believe that there will be, but it requires patience, and also the pandemic obviously didn't really put things in check a little bit. But I am confident that this program will yield results, but probably in 2 or 3 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks for sharing about that. And I think one question that did come to mind, when you were sharing about your experience of moving to Portugal, was that, I mean, is that something you would also advise other Singaporean designers to take on, or is it enough for them to travel, when borders open again, to travel regularly to meet potential clients in Europe?
I think it's a very personal and business specific decision, because of course there needs to be a system to work. For me, I still have my Singapore studio running, and while I try to grow a second studio over here, and it's not so easy for myself or for anyone to just up and move. But I think it's more about how each person's own business function. If they need, if the Singapore side of business requires the business owner to be there for regular FaceTime, then maybe it's better to travel to Europe and commute for meetings. But in my case, I was able to set up my studio in a way that my physical presence was not really required, absolutely required in Singapore. And as long as I frequently return to Singapore for key meetings or milestones, that will work fine for my office here.
Thank you. We also did have some questions that came in earlier before the webinar. So maybe Tony, you could, or Rosa, you could answer this one, which is, to what level do potential customers typically like to see concepts? So in terms of sketches, prototypes, basic renders, photorealistic renders with supporting environments. Do you have a sense of this?
By customer clients, I presume.
Yeah.
Customer clients. I think it's probably something for Gabriel as well, because he has more first-hand experience in presenting. But the sense I get, and Rosa, I think you'll back us up here, I think these clients, these brands, they're business people, but they're from creative roots. They are creative people. And I think sketches, ideas, the more curious and strange, the better. I think people like to see new ideas more so now than ever. They don't want predictability. Yeah. So I think if you're presenting things that show how this works, how the brain works, and how that strange creative part of the brain that human beings have, if you're expressing that, I think it can only be a positive thing. And I think it's right, isn't it, Rosie? We got that kind of feedback. They're looking for passion. They're looking for a point of difference. And I think more than ever now, not only due to the past 12 months pandemic, but also with the rise of artificial intelligence and computer systems, I think we're all looking for that bit of an unusual perspective and a take, and that's what creative people offer. So anything that shows that you are not a robot, I think is definitely going to be an advantage. Prove you can deliver the real thing at the end, but show some things that might make the client, the prospective client, smile, be inquisitive, remember.
I also think the idea itself is often the most important thing, but as we mentioned before, and I think some of the companies we questioned said, it needs to be well researched, keeping in mind the company, it needs to fit well. So you need to have done all of your background work before, and then the delivery of the first concept is maybe less important, but the idea needs to obviously be good, and it needs to fit within the MO of whoever you're proposing it to. So it's not whether it's a sketch or a render or a photorealistic CGI or even a prototype. It's more, is this the right product for this company at this time, and will it last, and can I create something from it?
Yeah, thank you. There's a related question that came in earlier as well, that it does seem a bit similar, but maybe you could answer this as well, which is it more effective to show one specific design to a potential customer, or is it better to show a portfolio of many different ideas to show the general range of design work?
I'll just jump in here, but again, Gabriel probably has a better perspective. I think our friend from the CEO of Gooby made the good point, and a couple of others, people said, yes, a variety in some respects, but please focus on what is right for that brand. Please target your work to understand the brand and what they need. It's important that you show that you're not just targeting everybody with the same thing, that you have a variety of work, you have flexibility in your design and creative skills, but you have done the homework to show, I think this particular piece is right for you. And I think that shows a respect and an understanding and an empathy for the brand that you're dealing with. So a bit of both, really.
Also, I guess, sorry.
No, go on.
I mean, are you doing quantity in the hope that something sticks, or are you doing quantity because you really believe that 15 of these designs are really good? So I think, and maybe Gabriel has a different point of view, but I think being more specific in the targeting of a concept is definitely more effective. Spending more time on one idea rather than bombarding a company with 15 is probably a more efficient and strategic way of doing it. That's my point of view, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's really about the context of the meeting or of the presentation. If it's something about showing your breadth of work over a period of time or what you've been researching into, then you can show your whole portfolio if you're presenting face to face, not to tell them that everything is for you, but it's more like, this is what I've been working on that is unpublished or over the past few years. And then throughout that portfolio presentation, they may say, oh, this one or two ideas are interesting. And then you also get a sense of where they're heading or what they're looking for as a brand. But then if it's something that that you are emailing or you are trying to propose specifically for a brand, then it's better to send less ideas, whether it's just one or two ideas. Then they really feel like you have studied their brand and designed something that is more focused to them. So yeah, I think both, it depends on the context. Yeah.
And Mabel, are we okay? We're up on time, but can we go another 5 minutes? Is that okay? Is that allowed?
Yeah, that's fine. We have a couple of questions that came
Exactly.
in.
There's a few more been coming in, I see.
Yeah, so I think we can go through two of the questions. So one of them is from Fabrice. He's asking, it's good to hear from the designer's perspective, but we should also hear from the editor's point of view in the role of an agent to facilitate business between the industry and design. So take it away. Yeah.
Take it away, Rosa.
Yeah. So I think he means that the role of, and that's actually, this has come up in some of the conversation that Tony, Gabriel, and I have had leading up to it. So of course, designers and companies are crucial to the creation of design. But then, yes, as Fabrice mentioned, an agent's role in then bringing this design out there and to customers and in front of people is very important. And actually, one of the conversations we've had have been, what are different ways that a design professional can help a company, can collaborate with a company that is not strictly designing a product for them. So there are so many different models of collaboration. And what we found is, and we've mentioned this before, companies that already had a presence in a territory were able to operate there effectively. So I think acting as a design company's agent, and I think this is what Fabrice mentioned, is a crucial, this is a crucial role. And I think for someone wanting to get into a design career and establish a relationship with a company, to be able to help them in a specific territory, as it is perhaps Singapore in this case, could be a great way to establish a strong connection. Gabriel, what is your point of view as someone being able to operate both in Europe and Singapore?
Yeah, I think in some ways, the designer is the ambassador of the brand. When I first started creative directing Ariake, which was a Japanese brand with no international track record, we were looking at markets that we wanted to enter. And that was also how we based on which designers we wanted to collaborate with and invite to Japan for the design workshops, because we felt that, a designer is in some way gives you inside information on a certain country or a certain market. And at the same time, they can design products that are more suitable for their home markets. So I think, acting as a creative director has helped me in that sense, because I was able to think from the other side as well. And then I could also see how if I were to want to design for this other brand, I would be able to offer the same qualities that I look for in designers I want to work with for the brands I creative direct.
Thank you. And I think we have one last question from Sujit. So, I mean, he addressed it to Gabriel, but I think we can hear from everyone, which is, in today's day and age, do you feel that a face-to-face meeting is still needed with potential clients or manufacturers when virtually everything can be done online, especially now, you know, in this COVID era?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think that the face-to-face meetings are still super important because I think everyone is also suffering from Zoom fatigue. I have asked, yeah, I mean, there are instances where I have asked people for Zoom meetings and people that I met before and people that I know, and I sense a reluctance to get on Zoom calls because maybe they're just on too many calls. Imagine if you're a CEO of a design company, you're probably on calls all day, 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day. So to have another call with a designer wanting to show you designs, maybe it's not on the top priority of the agenda. But then if you are actually going there, traveling a certain distance and wanting to visit them, they might view it as a form of sincerity and also a way to see that you are investing in making a trip to understand them better, and that will be more valuable and also shows your seriousness in wanting to work with someone.
Yeah, I'd concur with that. I think as a lot of the feedback we got was clear that this progress in digital communication has been incredible and has saved us in the last 12 months. But it's only another string to our bow. There's nothing like the real thing. And as we've been hearing, trust is such the most important thing between a designer and a brand and a manufacturer, a design company. And that trust, I don't think you can really get it without sharing proper physical time with each other, whether that be having a coffee, a glass of wine, conversation. Also, the body language is so crucial to building a relationship. Zoom is wonderful in many respects, but you don't really get that human interaction. So yes, it's been a fabulous addition and will continue to be. Like, wow, what an amazing way to even do this. But it's still human beings coming together unquestionably is where the real magic happens. And I think that will continue. So a real positive in that the two will work well together. It's going to really assist people outside Europe, Singaporean designers, that you can make that introduction, you can do that work, you can have meetings and progress. But yeah, we all want to get together and we all really feel that that is the moment when real trust happens and you get through things so much quicker. You can do 5 minutes face to face, you get it, you get when people really believe it. On Zoom, you can fudge things, yeah? You kind of, because you can't really tell whether people are being sincere. And I think it's, yeah, there's nothing will replace that.
I think what is right is, yes, everything can be done online, but you can't really establish a relationship online. So once you've done that, once you've established the relationship face to face and you've created that system of trust and mutual respect and established ideas, then the next steps can be done online. I've spoken to designers this year who found that they could still collaborate with companies they already had like a very strong relationship with without having to fly back and forth all the time. But they had that relationship done over the glasses of wine and, you know, by being together in the factory, for example, and by really getting to know each other. So once you've established the relation, it matters less where you are, but you have to first be face to face to do that. So it's definitely a mix of the two.
Yeah, so we're in a positive moment where we have this tool now, and I think it'll make the face to face that much better as well.
Yeah.
And
more efficient.
Nice digitally, but then it's really, yeah. And from our experience, as I say, you get things done so much quicker with a face-to-face meeting. You get that immediate trust. Before we close, I mean, there was one other question. Am I allowed to address it, Mabel? I don't know whether it's a cheeky one. I don't think it is. Imran says, is it essential to come from a rich family to sustain a living as an entrepreneurial industrial designer? I would say absolutely not. I think design and creativity and the design business is all about creativity and what you produce, and does not require coming from a wealthy background or any privileges like that. And I think everybody is looking for the real, genuine quality. I think in architecture, that has been an issue. Over in the past, it's changing, that because architecture is such a long-winded education. It takes so long to, you know, often you're not until your late 40s, 50s until you get anything built. So it's inevitable that historically it's been relatively wealthy people, men, who have been able to sustain their lifestyle because they had personal wealth. And then they made it. Obviously, talent wins in the end. So that has been tough. I think that is changing as well, fortunately. But in design, I think it's far more nimble. The profession, you find yourself being able to succeed in many, many different ways in the broad area of design. So no, I mean, it's, you know, and often, you know, there's nothing like a bit of hunger to really drive you to be more creative. Being comfortable often doesn't provide the best motivation to be creative. And it's stamina, perseverance, all the things Gabriel said earlier about just really staying in there, even if your passport has been stolen or people cancel your meetings. Doesn't matter whether you're rich, poor, or anything. It's just it's that stamina and a passion and a belief in that what you do is valuable. So I think we probably should close up, shouldn't we, Mabel? I have a little something to share, just another QR code for giving feedback, but which I will put on the screen now. Here we are, lovely QR code for you. Are we just seeing that QR code? My Q&A panel isn't showing, is it? Yeah, and just to sum up, I did have a few slides or something, but Rosa went through them. But I think one thing we talked about is also, and Gabriel, it was your point earlier that these brands need you as much as you need them. And I think more than ever now that they need as many creative and solutions to these problems that we have. And you as a designer, Gabriel has been very good at this as well, is that you offer them something. And if you're, particularly if you're Singaporean based, they might need, you know, they'll need help in terms of finding resources or people or connections in your territory. So never go into this relationship completely like cap in hand, please can I work for you? Don't be so subservient, be humble, of course, as Carola said, be respectful, but actually you've got a lot to offer these European brands. They need to know about Asia. They need to know about other territories that they haven't got their feet in at the moment. And I think, yes, you're offering primarily your design skills, but you can offer so much more. I think that's a really good point that Gabriel mentioned to me last week, and what he's shown that, yeah, you can solve many of their problems more than just designing them a beautiful piece of furniture. So I think that's a positive thing. Think what you have to offer that is outside the normal parameters of designing a product. So on that very positive note, I think, Mabel, shall we call it a day? Yes, please do scan this in, give us your feedback. Tell us what you feel about this webinar and the Business of Design program. And I think we should bid farewell just now. If I can find the button where I sign off, I will. But the sun has come out in London. It's a positive time. Let's get design going again and be in touch. And I look forward to seeing you all again. So thank you, Rosa. Thank you, Mabel. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you all for joining us. Have a good afternoon, evening, morning.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.